Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's episode 15 of Know Your Author series, and today we have with us Tarana Husain Khan. She's author of 3 books, she's a food historian, and she has also been a teacher for a long time. And let's find out more from Tarana herself. With us Tarana Husain Khan. She's an author and she's also a food historian. Her articles about Rampur cuisine, culture, and oral history have appeared in Scroll, Wire, and Daily O. She has written 3 books. I'm Not a Bimbet in 2015, a sequel to it, Cyberbullied in 2020, and Begum and Dastan, a historical fiction, is her latest novel. She has also founded Rampur Book Club in 2016 to promote reading of world literature in Rampur, and she hosts a website of Rampur's cultural history. It's called TaranaKhanAuthor.com. She's currently working on Global Challenge Research Funds, an Arts and Humanities Research Council funded research project, Forgotten Food. It's a culinary memory, local heritage, and agricultural varieties and lost agricultural varieties in India. So thank you, Tarana. Thank you for coming to my show.
Thank you for having me on your show, and hello, everyone.
So tell me about yourself. How does your day look like in this pandemic? How do you do, and how it's happening, with your day?
So I guess last year was something that it was new kind of a thing that okay, you can't go out and all of that. This year maybe it's become, and your children were with you, and it was we weren't so scared, but this year with not just scared, we weren't so disturbed because people were dying. But this year in India, as everyone knows, it's been quite a terrible time for most of us, and we have all lost our dear ones very close to us, and it's been a very tragic time for nearly everyone. So I guess I think it's only my work that just keeps me sane. I have not stepped out of my house for the past 2 months, and though one can go and pick up essentials, but I think it's best that I stay at home.
Yeah.
I'm it's really tough at times because you find yourself very isolated, and there is this constant fear that somebody close to you might become critically ill. Then there's this news that is every day filtering into our lives that is really disturbing, and there's a lot of helplessness. You can't do, there's nothing you can, like last year there was a migrant labor crisis, and my son and my daughter and all of us could go out and help them with food and give them money or whatever. But this year the fear is so much that we can't even think of moving out. So I structure my day in a way that there's the least of disturbance with all this news, though end up with the news at the end of the day or some call that is disturbing. But I think it's only the work that keeps you going, keeps you sane. And,
I feel there's a lot of stress, from all this, what's arriving, happening in the people. I feel that stress in you also.
yes, there is.
There is.
And there is no, like you don't feel there's an end in sight. And at times you feel that, okay, is my work even relevant? Why am I doing this? One is all the time questioning oneself. One is all the time trying to attain, because I'm working on a project. So most of the things around the project have come to a standstill, and, you don't know when will things be normal.
Normal, yeah.
So
And when the situation is so grave and what you're doing, you feel not a connection. It's like, what I'm doing, is it even relevant to what's happening around me?
you feel the hopelessness of anything. Why would people, like my work is right now I'm doing research for my next book. So then I often think, why would people read my book? And my current book that's out, I haven't as yet seen it on the book stands.
Oh,
That's I've all the time dreamt of walking into
yeah,
Khan.
yeah. It's, I think, a dream for every author to see your book on the bookshelves of those books, you know. Like as a reader, you grow up with seeing those books. So it's always there in your mind, like one day your book will be there.
Yes, and I feel that how can people read it when there's so much of devastation all around?
But I think people need a distraction, you know.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of people are reading your book, and I also picked it up because I was feeling like so much nostalgic. I was feeling so helpless, and then I saw your book, and it bring me back, you know, to my town and people and everyone there, and I could see myself at every place. So
I'm
thank you
so
for
happy.
writing that book. Actually, you know, I was like, if I could thank you in person, then this will be it, you know, that you put Rampur on the world map. Because
Well,
nobody knew much about Rampur or the cuisine or the heritage that we share or the language. It's like, you know, a phenomena, that small town somewhere.
but it is an amazing town. I haven't lived in Rampur really, though my grandparents are from Rampur and I've married into a Rampur family. But we haven't stayed in Rampur. I came back to Rampur in 2010. And at that time, of course, we all know about Rampur from my parents. You know about Rampur. Okay, there was this Nawab of Rampur. This is how we lived. This is what we ate, etc., etc. But they were all stories. So
Yes.
then I just got involved in researching about Rampur. Let me know about Rampur history, and then going to Raza Library. It's just the most beautiful place in Rampur, and just going there is enough to cheer me up. So these days I can't even go there, and it's got an amazing treasure of books and manuscripts. And I just got lost, researching, and somebody said, why don't you look up food? So I found these 120 more than 150-year-old manuscripts in Persian about food, and that's how everything started. And as the journey started and as I started writing, I decided ultimately that I needed to do more and more about putting Rampur back on the map, because it was so glorious and people don't know about it.
Yeah,
And
people don't know about it.
yeah, and finally I decided to give up my 16-year-old teaching career and become a full-time writer.
It was a
I have
big move, actually. So, how was your childhood and where was it?
So my father was an IS officer, and so most of the time we were in different part. He was in the UP cadre, so we were placed in different parts of Uttar Pradesh and moving every 2 to 3 years. Then I lived in Aligarh when my father passed away. I lived with my grandmother, and she's from Rampur as well. So this family had shifted to Aligarh because children were educated at Aligarh. So my father was from Aligarh also. So just growing up in that huge house, which was like a mini Rampur inside Aligarh, was the most beautiful years of my life. Was spent in Aligarh, and then after that, I was. Um I got married and came to Rampur, but then life makes its own
Oh,
journey.
yeah.
Came back to Rampur again in 2010.
So it was a circle that needs to be completed. You're back to Rampur, and you had to write a book about Rampur, actually. You know, there's always like those connecting dots.
Yeah, it was a circle of life, and this is once I got into this, it was like, okay, this is what it was meant to be. With all the connections with my grandparent, my grandfather, my great great grandfather, everybody had some role in the history of Rampur, and now coming back here, it was like a life circle.
So let's talk about the food, food and drinks. I think you will like these questions. Most of the authors, they're like, you know. But I think since you're a food historian and you are living in Rampur and you are connected with people of Rampur, food is very important for us. So what is your favorite food?
Yes. What is my favorite food? Okay, I love gulati. That's I have a sweet tooth like I think every Rampuri.
Yeah.
I love gulati, and I don't know. People feel that it's something like a kheer, which it is not.
It is not.
Gulati is something that is kheer, but it has a twist to it. It is more richer than normal kheer, and it has got a smoky twist. And a part of my project that I'm working on is also to revive these foods, these
Forgotten food.
foods which have been
Yeah.
forgotten foods. I want to reproduce because now what has happened is, for instance, we used to have at least 10 pulaus till the 1960s. There were 10 types of pulaus. And now there's just one pulau that you must have had and
The
that
yakhni
we
pulao.
all the time have. It's amazing, but there was more to it. There were many more pulaus. So translating the old recipes and getting them back into teaching them to the khansamas so that their repertoire is enriched. That is a part of what I am doing right now. And besides that, we are trying to revive the heritage varieties of rice. Maybe you have heard of Tilak Chandan. I don't know, you are so young. Maybe you've heard of
Oh
Tilak
no, I
Chandan.
like to, yeah.
That was, you have?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tilak Chandan was heritage rice of Rampur. But now it's not grown anymore. So we did that again. We're trying to revive it by different scientific methods. Actually, I'm working with the University of Sheffield in this project, and let's see. Maybe we are able to do something significant.
So all the best for you for this work. And I'm so happy to know. But there are like, I feel there are advantages of globalization and there are disadvantages also. Like you get connected to so many things, you get to, like you're open to so much food and I would say clothes or different things. But then you're losing your own things like the, Rampuri culture or the food and these things. So like, for example, there was one food I always grew up listening from my grandfather was like those kachnar ke phool, kachnar ki kalya, the keema that they used to make with those.
Yeah.
I never ate it at my home. I never even saw those kachnar ki kalya. But somehow I think here in a Pakistani store where I do my grocery, I found them one time and I was like, okay, I have to make it. And then I made the
But
keema.
you did?
I
Oh,
did.
okay, okay.
I did, and it tastes so much like I would say that Karela keema. It was so close to the taste.
Yeah.
I loved it, and I told my grandfather, and he was so happy. His eyes literally was bright. Before he passed away, like 2 years back. But yeah, I have this thing that I want to also be interested on what happened in the past, what my father ate, what my grandfather ate, and the stories I grew up of the food and the things that they were eating. Some of the fruits I can still see my father he brings when I'm in Rampur, like lokat, and they're not
Okay.
yeah, visible so much in the market. But yeah, when he false lokat, whenever he could find, he will go and bring those things, and he will remember his childhood of his grandmother feeding him, and then he will eat. Like shikarkandi ki
There,
kheer, I never saw it anyone else making it except in Rampur.
yeah, there's so many foods. I think these are the foods that were evolved by living in Rampur, like you say, this Kachnar wala. A lot of food connection between Rampur and Pakistan also, or
Yeah.
Rohilkhand and Pakistan also. So a lot of stuff, is similar over there. And these are the food connections and the food stories. Besides that, there were a lot of these foods which were very tough to make. Like you have Shabdev.
Yeah.
Now I read some Shabdev was the best. And now very few people in Rampur actually have Shabdev. If you ask them, they'll say, Shabde, we don't know.
I know, right?
But
Yeah, I just heard about it.
yeah, you've just heard about it. So I've also just heard about it, right? So people just stopped making things which were difficult to make, because you see what happened in the 1960s and 70s after the privy purses were stopped. People, the Khansamas didn't have any sponsors, you see, and people were going around in search of jobs. Rampur, the industries of Rampur started declining in the 1960s. People were 50% unemployment is reported in 1960s. So there was a degradation of culture. What is the problem now that we don't see that kind of culture that my parents, my mother talks about, or my nanny used to speak about, is because there was economic, let's
Slump.
say,
It became, yeah, slumping.
continuing slump. Even today, what do we have? We just have two big industries which are hardly employing many people, and the cottage industries are also declining. So all these economic problems have led to a situation where the more the gains of the food, let us say the kind of food that Rampur cuisine had, has just been forgotten because kind of this economic slump.
Yeah, now I can relate to it that, okay. I mean, you think of development when everything else is flourishing, everything else is okay in your life. You start off thinking. But when people are struggling with the, everyday meals and things, it's hard to think about the culture.
Yes, exactly. So that's what happened to Rampur. And it's terribly sad, because what we had was really amazing. It was the place where all, because it became the markaz. It's called a markaz. Markaz means a cultural node or a cultural place. When there was the fall of Delhi and the fall of Awadh in 1857. So all the artists, everyone just came to Rampur because it is stationed in these two centers, as well as other cultural centers all around in Uttar Pradesh, all these smaller cultural centers, because here was a Nawab who was willing to spend,
True.
Nawab Yusuf Khan, then Nawab Kalbi Ali Khan, then Hamid Ali Khan. They were willing to appreciate poets and artists, and they were buying manuscripts, and they were buying artifacts and putting it in the library, and they were trying to preserve culture. You see, so they worked so hard. There were two centuries of work of preservation that has just gone to waste.
True.
And that's why people don't know much about Rampur,
Yeah.
and it's such an amazing place.
And when I look back at the history, I see like so many great people at certain point of time have lived in Rampur. And then when you think back, the reason, it's exactly what you said, that the Nawabs were sponsoring them. They were ready to pay, for the art and culture and invest in those things. So that's why we saw like there was a time when Ghalib lived in Rampur, or he visited Rampur. There were times when
Uh,
so many,
all of them,
all
they
of
were
them,
sponsored
yeah.
by the Rampur Nawab. Like Ghalib's main sustenance after 1857 was Rampur. His funeral expenses were paid by Nawab Kalbi Ali Khan. His debts were looked after by his nephew, his adopted son, his widow. They were looked after by Nawab. So,
Wow, I
that is
didn't know this. It's so interesting to know.
it. And we don't know much about it. That's the more important thing, that people should know about this place.
Yes. So let's come to books. What is your favorite book or genre?
I love reading historical fiction, of course, because I've written historical fiction. I love Hilary Mantel. I don't think I can. I'm the kind of person who loves literary fiction, historical fiction. That's why, books that make you think, books that move you, and they inspire something, they change something in you. I like such books. Oh, I do light reading also, but you know, generally my involvement with books is very deep.
So what is writing for you?
It's really amazing that how come I had just stopped writing. Of course, everybody writes something or the other in college, and my college teachers, when they met me, they said, I always knew, the teacher said that you would be a writer, and I said, oh, I didn't know this. She said, yes, you had to be a writer. And so till I was in my 40s, I never started writing again, because I guess one needs a sort of a time and space in life when one can reflect, and it's an amalgamation of all your experiences. So writing to me is a very deeply emotional experience. And at times, you have to hold yourself back, because there are so many things that you want to write, but whenever you think about, okay, can I publish this? What will happen if I publish this? So these are the societal pressures that you have, and you have to decide to edit it out. But when I write, I just write. I can edit it later, but I just let it flow on writing and writing. The characters are speaking to me early in the morning, and the day they, I know I'm in the middle of the story, because they're talking to me early in the morning, and I have to get up and I have to remember what happened said, and I have to start writing.
Yeah, writing for me is more, I would say, to know myself better. When I have to really think about myself, I write, and it helps me to know myself better, when I write. And I also feel it's healing, when I'm hurt, I write. When I'm sad, I'm write. But I don't know, when I'm happy, I write. I don't think so. No, but
Yeah, I was
it's more healing.
does, and I didn't think much about happiness till much
Yeah.
later. um, Writing has all of that, and I've seen your podcast, your little reflections on different things, and they're very interesting, deeply emotional, I should say.
Thank you. So what was the turning point in your life? I already see one, when you left your teaching career to become a full-time writer. I see it as a turning point. Are there more turning points?
I think that was the main turning point, because you see, I was a teacher who loved to teach. It was like a very important part of my personality, and so leaving that was very heartbreaking. But I just realized that there was a time I was very, very disturbed by a lot of things that was going on in the education system, you can say, or the way education system is today. And I just felt kind of very hopeless, which is sad. But then this was this career which I decided to take up. I was in my 40s, and I just felt that I have very little time, and there's so much that I can still do. And so I took up this career. I think that was the main turning point in my life, that totally changed the way that I decided to live, and I decided to do. And I think, therefore, it was just, maybe if I had started writing, let us say, when I was younger, I won't have had the patience of
Mm,
sitting hours on my desk and sitting days, closed in the house. I would never have had the patience. But there's always a time for everything,
yeah,
and that was.
exactly. There is always a time for a certain thing, and you will come back to it. That's what I feel. That you come back to it and you finish the work that were left unfinished. For me, I always wrote small little poems. I think growing up or as a small child, I had always written poems, or something, or a passage or something. But right now, like, writing a book is still, it feels big. It's like something really huge, but you write over the years, or you write over the months, and you write little every day, which is what I'm currently doing. Just, whenever I feel like, I write little bit every day, and then I will see if it will turn out into a book or not yet. But I'm just writing for the moment.
it, it's a long and a lonely journey. It's a long and a lonely journey, and a lot of patience, a lot of courage. I I don't think it gets any easier.
No.
I just it gets tougher and tougher.
Yeah, that's what I am feeling every day. But then, as you said, that the characters, they call you in the morning. Yeah. It's like, hey, listen to me. I have a story for you. Just stop sleeping. So, but it happens to me more at night when I'm sleeping. My characters are so strong in my head and I'm not able to sleep.
Yeah,
I
that
feel
does.
like if I didn't write it now, it will just be lost. And it gets lost. If I miss that opportunity, it gets lost. It doesn't have that same grasp or the strength that I feel at night. But
Yeah,
yeah, my characters are racing in my head at night.
I, I like people find that very strange, but I'm so happy that Sana they have started talking to you, because every day that I was writing my book Begum and the Dastan, it was like a book that I what I was writing was a book that I wanted to read. So I would get up with an excitement. What will happen today in my book? What will happen today? It was like it was out of my hands. Somebody else was writing it,
Yeah.
and the characters were deciding what needed to be done. Though I knew the structure of the story, but every day something would happen, and it would be like, oh, what's going to happen today? Will the husband and the wife have a fight? What will come out of the fight?
No, it was amazing. It was a book that I really would have loved, or I was waiting that kind of book about Rampur. I never thought that it will be written, and it's like a dream come true for me, that someone thought about it and wrote a book like that.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad the book found you.
And
That
I'm so glad that I will keep it for my son. Like if you want to know ever about Rampur or where your mother belong, you can read this book.
was that's so sweet.
And yeah, how was your publishing experience? Like right now, I'm just writing at the moment whenever I can, but I don't know about my publishing experience, what it will be. But as I see from people, it's very scary. How was your publishing experience?
See, I was when I wrote my first book. It won't. I still have it. It was getting published by some vague publication house, and then I wrote another, and I just you just keep sending. You have a sort you keep sending sample chapters to everybody that you can find in every publication house, and they sometimes they write back, sometimes they don't, and
And it's
it's very.
heartbreaking, right? Because I would say it's your child. It's like, you really nurture your book, you love your book, and then you have to wait on somebody to give a judgment about your book. It's hard, right?
Yes, but the thing is that I have a cousin. She's called Taran, and she is my maternal uncle's daughter.
I
She
have
is a very.
heard about the book I think she wrote. What's the name of her book? About something related to Afghanistan or Kabul, right?
It's
Yeah.
a. She was the person who kept saying, "Oh my God, it's these rejection letters. Everybody has them. Just look at that person. Look at that writer." And I just would carry on, and she would say, "You have to write. You have to write." I'm sure if she wasn't there, I would have maybe I wouldn't have given up, but it would have been really, really tough, because when I was really depressed, I would call up and I say, "Oh God, I got another rejection," and
She
like
was
that.
there on your journey. She was there like a
She was
listener
there.
or friend or mentor.
Yes, definitely. She was the mentor, though she is much younger than me, but she was the mentor. And she also helped me to understand what was going wrong with my book. That is also,
It's
you
very
have
important.
a learner. I think the key thing is, Sana, what I discovered was that if you're willing to learn and open yourself to learning, and not be like, okay, I wrote this book and it's good. I wrote this book and it still can become better.
Yeah.
So, so I guess I just kept learning from different people, even people who rejected me. I learned a lot from them. Why did they reject me? Or what did they have to say after that rejection? I listened very carefully to their rejections.
Yeah. That's a great thing actually, if you are open to that part.
Yes, and that was that it will always be a learning experience, even after this book is published and I have put my heart and soul into it. So I still now feel that, oh, I should have done it like this, and why didn't I do it like this?
So
You
you
know,
still feel you could add more to it.
I feel that I added too much to it.
Okay.
That I would ever write, and I've just put everything into it. I think maybe I could have made it simpler. I don't know. Sometimes I
No,
feel.
but sometimes I also read about like the reviews of some of the books in the newspapers that were published. Some people, they don't know that it belongs to Rampur, or they don't know the history of Rampur, or they don't know that contemporary story,
Yeah.
that you mark the event so well, you mark the history and the event so well, they cannot map it, and they cannot, or they judged it without knowing it. Only people, I think, from Rampur can really associate to that the contemporary, the third story,
Yes. So when we talk about Amira's story,
Yeah,
that young girl, I'm sure you can associate
I
yourself,
could
Sana.
very well associate. I could see myself in Amira. I could see a lot of girls of Rampur in Amira, and I could associate to every incident which was happening in Amira's life. That okay, it happened to people in real. I know those people.
Yes. So you see Amira's story, because I was teaching in Rampur for 6 years. Amira's story was so close to my heart. My editors want to understand. People who read my book, they would say, "Why don't you just leave Amira out of it? Why is this young girl in present Sherpur? It's called in present
I would
Sherpur."
say it's your tribute to the current Rampur situation. That small part.
In the of those girls as a teacher, I have been very helpless in just watch the pain of these girls, and I had to write Amira's story at least thrice, with totally different events, totally, with zero, and write it again. But I said, no, I want the story there. Somehow I don't know, people always tell me, they still tell me, why Amira, but
No, because they don't. I think those people they don't belong to Rampur. It's for Rampur
yeah,
people.
that
Amira
it would,
belongs to Rampur.
yeah, maybe I thought it would have more universal appeal if I put it with a girl who was dealing with similar situations that Firoza Begum dealt with in the beginning of the 20th century. The young girls are still having those problems. The young girls, their desires are still crushed. They still live in the harems in a way that they are helpless.
Yeah, and those invisible harems that are held either by society or the family or whatever.
That is true. That is something that I have, not everybody,
Not
thankfully,
everybody, yeah,
but a lot of young girls,
yeah.
a lot that I've come across. I'm talking about Rampur. It might be the same with the small towns of Uttar Pradesh, the small towns all over India. Young girls, their desires, their aspirations take the back seat. That is what I was telling. That is the story that I wanted to say. That they still live in the harem of. They still have a veil which is there around them, like they've become like invisible. Who are they? Even their parents don't want to know, because they're not important enough.
True. That's the sentence actually, that they are not important enough. They are like kind of lesser humans than the male or counterparts in their family. I got
Yeah,
it
and
very well. I mean, for me, it was very clear.
yeah, it
I think anybody who from Rampur or around Rampur can associate to it. But yeah, people on the more national level or who are from another part of India, maybe it's hard for them to relate to it, and which is okay, I think. It's understandable.
yeah, people have
Understandable.
the young people who are living in metros, etc., will say, no, I wanted to become a doctor, so look, I'm a doctor. But here I've met so many girls who were brilliant, but they were not allowed that
Yeah.
becoming. See, like Firoza Begum's fate was sealed. She was in the harem of the Nawab, and nothing could happen except her. She had to just somehow live her life with dignity over there. In the same way, the young girls of India, even today, I should say most of the girls of India, even today, have to compromise. in one way or the other.
No, that's true. It's true. I mean, as a
I,
woman, I saw like growing up or around me that girls compromise, that, okay, my parents have kept the money for my marriage, so I'm not allowed to do higher studies or
yes,
like a professional course because they have to pay for something else, or I have no say in the family decisions because that are for the males to take care of.
and in so many ways we accept it.
We
It
accept
is
it. It's like not accepting is not normal.
so as a young person also maybe because, but things were different maybe for me, but there were very small ways in which we accepted patriarchy. There were so many small ways in which we accepted patriarchy. uh,
And I also see there was no other way around it. When we looked left and right, it was such a norm to be in that patriarchal system. Like there was no other way to conform, to conform to patriarchal ways that we saw around us or, grew up with. But I would also say that I was really lucky in that way, that my parents gave me a choice to study or do what I wanted. Not everyone had that choice.
yes, exactly. Like you and me could make certain choices which the others were not allowed. Definitely we were privileged in
We were
that,
privileged, yeah.
but most women are not.
They are not,
Most
yeah.
women made our decisions in life, but most women are not. And it's important that things very little has changed for the women in India. That's what I've discovered because I have taught young people for 16 years, and I know that things are not so good for Indian women and for Indian girls at all.
And I feel the same. Like I read that book, My Feudal Lord, from Fatima. I think it was Fatima Durrani, Tamina
Then
Durrani, Tamina Durrani. So the same is happening, or in fact, I feel worse in the in the Punjabi part of Pakistan.
it's all patriarchy, you see,
All patriarchy. Yeah.
and it's the women who promote it. Unfortunately, it's
Yeah.
the mother.
Unfortunately, most of the systems which are promoted are like those matriarch of the houses which are promoting patriarchy.
That is
Do you want to read something for us from your book, Begum and Dastan?
love to. So you see, the book is about Firoza Begum, who is a young married lady, and she goes to attend Savni, or it's a monsoon festival at the Benazir
Palace.
Palace, Bagh Benazir. And there she meets the Nawab, but she doesn't know it's the Nawab, you see, and she insults him and all of that. So now this is a scene from the book. I just gave you the background.
I read the book actually. I know.
Hi, for others,
For the readers, yeah.
just give a little background.
Yes.
It says here Feroza Begum Benazir Palace, Sherpur, 1896. There are stories, whispers, and then there is the truth. My story can draw from any of these or from all of these. This is the narrator of the story who's saying this. That evening, Firoza Begum and her family entered through the ladies' entrance to the Darbar Hall of Benazir Palace. It led to a gallery that ran around the hall, shuttered with split bamboo curtains hanging on elaborate arches to shield the ladies from male eyes. A eunuch ushered them to their seats to the right of the royal throne, where they had a good view of the proceedings. This is the jalsa, you can say, in the darbar. The lights in the viewing gallery were low, such that only the silhouettes of the ladies with a gleam of color could be discerned by an attentive male eye. Firoza sat close to the frieze, peering at the hall resplendent with glittering chandeliers, turbaned kings, bejeweled in their long jama kurtas, the noblemen and British officers in their smart trousers and red coats with badges and insignia. The musicians were seated at the center on a platform with Munga Jan, glamorous in her red and gold dancing costume, lit and ready, her tinkling feet beating a rhythm. The chopdars, or the mace bearers, entered the hall and announced the arrival of the Nawab, reciting his high sounding titles Amirul Umra, Farzande Ala, Daulate Inglishiya. Everyone rose from their seats, and the British officers tucked their black hats under their arms. Munga Jan bent double with her salam. Zubaida Begum asked Feroza to get back to the seat. Ammi, no one can see from outside. Let me look at the Nawab once. The Nawab entered with a quick, impatient steps, his head surging ahead of his body, flanked by the British agent and the chief minister. The British and Pathan officers follow. By any standards, his frame was unimpressive and puny, but clothed in a cleverly padded, flesh colored brocade sherwani, the ruby gleaming in his serpage, and the pearl and diamond strings covering his pigeon chest created a dazzling aura of royalty. The Nawab turned to speak to his chief minister, the immaculately clipped mustaches quivering with his smile. It was an unremarkable face, imprinted with arrogance that befitted all tales of despotism she had heard whispered about him. Bibi, it's him. Tabu clutched her hand. Now Tabu is the young maid. Clutched her hand and whispered. He knew her. She had insulted the Nawab and identified herself. She watched as he sat down on his brocade takht with a swish of his coat and motioned the gathering to take their seats with a whisk of his hand. He was vindictive, Abba often said, and he never forgot or forgave a rebuff. Fear pricked at the roots of her hair and dripped down her back.
Thank you for reading it for us. It was really, really interesting. I think I have recommended already to so many people and they're interested in the book. So inshallah, I wish you all the best, for this book, and you write many more books which will be bestsellers, and people will remember them always. And do you have a message for the readers and the viewers?
Yes, my message is that, well, these are really dark times. But like I say, everything passes. And we would remember it. There will be sadness in our remembrance always. But the heartening thing is that nothing remains the same. Change is the only constant. Let's be courageous. Let's just carry on with whatever we are doing and believe that it will have some importance somewhere, because a job well done will always be important.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time and coming to my show.